Hello, welcome back to Moffett Field again. We just finished a 4-round, two-person game, and I thought I'd just do a quick video to show another aftermath. Axis, I was playing Axis. I called it at the end of round 4 because it just wasn't gonna happen this game again for the Axis. As you can see here, Germany was wearing down the Russians, but had expended so much air force trying to sink the British and Russian Navy that came down over here in A6 and A7. This stack of 14, and there's a stack of 12 somewhere. Maybe I combined them. But for 2 or 3 turns, most of the Luftwaffe was tied up in A6, fighting these 2 battleships and a couple other ships with subs. Eventually, those got lost. This sub here was a build in an attempt perhaps to send it out into A6 and sink the British fleet again. The Italians moved up to help with the attack on Moscow. I was able to sneak off 1 unit and take the Caucasus from this battle in G6 here in the Ukraine. But overall, the Axis they can't push towards Moscow while stacks of American forces are coming across the Atlantic unharassed, because usually Germany's subs get sunk. The American Air Force flies over pretty quickly, and they either land up here in Norway, or they can put pressure on France, or land in North Africa, of course, which pretty much happened in most cases. And again, here's these stacks coming across the Atlantic unhindered. Over in Africa, kind of a last-ditch effort to try and take Egypt, with the Americans coming into North Africa. A push into Egypt, kind of a last-bit gamble here. Didn't happen. Now they're tied up, and now there's stacks coming up through Africa. Again, Africa just doesn't seem like much of a play. So you take these small. You take Sudan, Horn of Africa, you put 1 stress on the British, big deal. Maybe you get a couple grains. Unlikely one would ever get over here into Nigeria, where there's some iron. And highly unlikely one would ever take South Africa. How many turns is that? It's probably 5, 6, 7 turns away. And you'd have to pump a massive amounts of infantry somehow to get them across the Mediterranean. The best bet for this oil is probably through the Caucasus, and then possibly put pressure on India. So that's the status over in Europe. In Asia, so again, for Japan to trade oil, according to the rules, there has to be a ship either in I-1 or over next to Venezuela. There has to be probably a German U-boat or something there. So part of the Japanese Navy has to come here so that Japan can unload its oil. And that's only 1 oil per turn. Otherwise, one can only build so many tanks, which I was doing over here in Beijing. 2 tanks every turn, 2 tanks. There's the 2 tanks from the previous turn. And then a stack up to 8 here. So again, a bunch of tanks to burn off the oil. And here's the stack from the previous turn, because they can move 1, they can move to P0, and then they can move to P14. So that stack can come down here, and as long as there's no U.S. Navy or British Navy, which got wiped out over here in P18 or P19 the first turn, the Japanese can move down pretty much unhindered. Here's two more turns. So that's a turn, or that turn 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the 4 stacks, with an attempt to perhaps take India. But this 60 moved into Burma and caused some trouble for the Japanese while they were trying to finish off the Chinese. Of course, the Chinese rolled well, and the Japanese weren't really able to finish them off. That would probably happen this turn with the help of that the 81st tank. And these bombers and planes finish off the Chinese this turn. India is probably unlikely for at least 2 or 3 turns, if ever, because now they're building 4 or 5 units here every turn. So so these guys move over here. The next turn, the 97 moves in. Maybe by then these planes can come down. This Navy has to sit here and battle it out. Hopefully they win. And India just keeps building. So this, if the Japanese can maybe, one strategy might be not to finish off China, but go for India. But as I mentioned in the previous video, China can move outside. China could come down here if they want. China can come here. China can go into Russia. Around. So China's not that limited as they are typically, like in Global 40. They can do anything they want. The Americans also made it. This is a little. It should be here, but the Americans also landed in Russia. Due to the Molotov Pact, they can't attack China yet, and Japan, and Japan can't attack them here, but nothing prevents them from probably getting on this railway and reinforcing Moscow. So the Americans can do that pretty much unhindered, because they can bounce across from Alaska. They couldn't do it now because this fleet's back up here. Previously, these 2 Japanese fleets were down here in P18 and P19, taking care of the American and British fleets. What else have we got here? This American fleet's actually not here. It's actually somewhere over here. But we were just kind of talking after the game, what ifs. So the Japanese fleet has to sit here and protect the mainland. And the Americans still have quite a few resources they can call in that are already built. The game starts with these fighters, and then of course they're just building up massive stacks and pushing them across the oceans. So again, a tough game for the Axis. There was some bad rolling at the beginning, but whatever, that's just part of the game. But that gives you a view of another post-mortem of what we find to be the challenges of playing the Axis. Perhaps it's realistic. These were all kind of things Germany, Japan, and Italy had to deal with. The onslaught of the American economy. And what else? Just another tip for the game. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I would highly recommend investing in the Lazy Susan. This is my Global 40 board that it's on. And even if you have a round table, it's still super handy to be able to flip this board around pretty quickly, rotate this board around. And I just bought like a cheap $20 lazy 14-inch, 16-inch Lazy Susan off Amazon or whatever, and it works great. All right, so that's game number 11, another Allied win. Hopefully we can come up with some Axis strategies. Maybe there's something in Africa we're missing that we should go after. Maybe there's another way to trade the oil, but by land route it's blocked. So the only option, it seems, is a sea route requiring navies. And so far, it seems that that massive, quick push, initial push into Moscow was the best approach. Wear down the Russians before the Americans show up. But when those Americans show up, it's pretty much game over, because this puts 1, 2. There's 2 stress, 4, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6 stress. That moves Germany down on the. That moves Germany down into, like, they're already losing 3. No rail, no move orders. So once Germany falls down here, they don't have they can't buy enough goods to relieve stress, and they're not taking enough territories probably to relieve stress if they get bogged down here. That's another reason to hit early, is to take these out and get some metals to relieve stress. That's how you relieve stress in the game, is you take territories. I guess it rallies the troops in the homeland. As you get invaded, morale goes down, of course. All right, so another post-game synopsis. Welcome any thoughts on how to win as the Axis. Take care.